Hello, I'm Foojan Zeine, and welcome to my show, Inner Voice, where we explore all that matters in your life from a psychological perspective. Today, I'm excited and honored to have Dr. Jeffery Zeig, psychologist, with us. Let me tell you a bit about him. Dr. Zeig is a founder and the director of the Milton Erickson Foundation, having studied intermittently with Dr. Erickson for more than 6 years. He has edited and co-edited, authored and co-authored more than 20 professional books that appear in 14 foreign languages. His current area of interest is extracting implicit codes of influence from various artists, including movies, music, painting, poetry, and fiction that can be used to empower professional practice and everyday communication. Dr. Zeig is the architect of the Evolution of Psychotherapy conferences, which is considered the most important conference in the history of psychotherapy. He also organizes the Brief Therapy conferences and couple conferences and the International Congress on Ericksonian Approach to Hypnosis and Psychotherapy. He is on the editorial board of numerous journals and is a fellow of American Psychological Association and American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. He is a distinguished practitioner in the National Academy of Practice in Psychology of National Academies of Practice. He is a distinguished professor at California Southern University and has received numerous awards from both national and international professional societies for his achievements. I'm very excited to have Dr. Zeig with us. Welcome, Dr. Zeig, to my show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
On a personal note, I have to tell you, and I will always get emotional when I say this to you, which is, I am so inspired by you. I remember in 2005, which was the Erickson Foundation had this conference in Las Vegas, and that was the first time that I came there. And I was just sitting in front of brilliance with the way that you have brought all of the psychologists, psychiatrists who create theories in this field. And you know what you have done for this field and for us as psychologists and psychotherapists to be and hear from them and have a chance to actually hear them tell about their model. You know, I remember I used to look at Pearl or many of the psychologists and say, well, I've read them, I've actually talked to, know their approach, but actually seeing them and talking to them and hearing from them was very, very inspiring. And I remember at 2008, as I was sitting there and listening and learning from everybody and, did my own approach in my own office, and I looked at this, I was so inspired, and I said, Dr. Zeig, at one point, I want to be up there. I want to get so good and strive on excellence to somehow be able to contribute to the field the way that you have always contributed to the field. That's one thing on a personal note. The other piece, I just wanted to let you know, I have not seen someone with such a tremendous amount of love and compassion and patience, where with everyone and honoring everyone that has come close to you. And I've watched that every year, where I've come to 2 of your conferences and I've watched you interact with psychologists, psychiatrists, and 10,000s of people who have been there. So I want to personally thank you for that.
Bless you. Thank you so much. Because some of our mission is similar. And actually, that conference in Las Vegas was 1995.
Yeah.
It wasn't 2005,
Wow.
It was 95. So we go back a long way.
Yes, and don't tell anybody that I'm that old.
But the mission is bringing people together. It's such a simple idea. And when I first did this conference, my field was at odds with each other, and people were arguing whose theory was better, whose approach was better. And this was an opportunity to establish a foundation of consilience, a foundation of cooperation, a foundation where people could understand each other's ideas and build synergistically on each other's ideas. On the personal side, I think that kindness is in short shrift in today's society, and that we should extol kindness. There's, some things that we can't have enough of, and kindness is one of those. So part of my commitment is to always see people through the lens of kindness.
Well, I know that a lot of people think about kindness and say it, but to actually, when you are organizing such a huge conferences every year and have to be with demanding 10,000 demanding people, and no matter what, keep that kindness is a virtue that is amazing. So again, because I've seen it, I just wanted to acknowledge it, and that I was inspired by the way that you have brought major people who have created theories to other psychologists, and I wanted to also be able to take some of the things you've done and then take this and bring it to the public, because I think that public don't have the chance to meet many of the great masters in this field. Sometimes they read their book, but they don't have the chance to hear from them many times. So I also wanted to open this venue so that such as yourself and other masters to be able to talk to the public about what they do, and they can hear you talk about your books. Now, I know one of the books that you have had is 10 Commandments for Couples. So let's talk about that. Tell us about the 10 Commandments.
Sure. The idea there was to get contributors, major contributors, the people who have done research and theorizing about partner therapy, and to get them to each write some bullet points in specific areas, which could be 10 Commandments for nonverbal communication, 10 Commandments for having an argument, 10 Commandments for having a date, 10 Commandments for dealing with stress, 10 Commandments for dealing with problem children. In today's society, everything is communicated in bullet points, everything is communicated and pre-digested so that we can take advantage of the maximum amount of information in the shortest amount of time. So this is a compendium where you literally could take out a page and you could put that page on your mirror if that was something that you needed to remember, and stay conscious of these points. And or the people who have contributed, they are the best in contemporary research, theorizing, practice of couples therapy.
So if you wanted to tell our couples who are listening to you right now some of those commandments and how they should approach their marriage, what would you say?
Yeah, well, let's think that one of the basic problems in marriage is personality differences.
Yes.
In that sense, we could say every marriage is a mistake because the personality differences are so great, and people have to learn how to adjust and how to cope with personality differences. The ways in which people can be more accepting of each other, the ways that people can be more understanding of each other, the ways in which people can start to try to create a map. How does my partner experience his world? And to be curious, almost to go into marriage with the mentality of being an anthropologist. Like I just came back from Singapore, and that's a completely different culture to me, and it operates on different rules. And So I have to be respectful and try to understand the rules of the culture that I'm in. I've taught psychotherapy in more than 40 countries, which may be the Guinness Book of Records for all I know. But I'm consistently operating in different cultures. Next Monday, I go to China, where I'll be lecturing for 3 weeks. Completely different culture. Well, if you're traveling to a different culture, you respect the fact that there are going to be cultural differences. When you're marrying, you need to have the same kind of mentality, understand that there are going to be personality differences. We know from the research that happily married couples, people have been married for 50 years and they're happy together. Well, they're having the same fight that they did 50 years ago. And they know how to repair, they know how to manage it, they know how not to create damage. Although on some central areas of life, some of the problems are unsolvable. The research has shown that 2/3 of all marital problems are unsolvable. So we have to learn how to cope with the problems and understand the problems that aren't going to be solved, and to be able to work efficiently on the problems that can be solved.
So when we're talking about difference of personalities, it's very true that many people find each other through some compatibilities, but a lot of times they get attracted to a person who has some of the features they actually don't have, and it might be complementary to them. And interestingly enough, after living with someone right after marriage and after the honeymoon stages, like you said, there's some sort of an expectation gets formed by us that my mate should be just like me, and if they're not, then obviously they're wrong, because I'm the right one and they're the wrong one since they're not like me. And what I hear from you is that tuning in to that expectation is not accurate, and because we're different, then we should learn which parts of our relationship we can actually negotiate and shift, and which part of our character and coming together there's no way of shifting or changing, and how we can adapt to and cope, and in that sense be able to live happily kind of ever after together. Is that what I hear from you?
Yes. One of the main researchers, probably the greatest researcher in the history of marital therapy, is John Gottman,
yes,
a personal friend. And if people went to Gottman, GOTTMAN.com, they could see some of his books and some of his research. And he is very good. He studies not troubled marriages, but he studies good marriages. And he studies what are the characteristics of good marriages. And then he simplifies them and says, okay, if you do these 7 things, you can have a good marriage. This is what the masters of marriage do. And a lot of problem that you were alluding to, I think about as conversion. Like people are trying to convert their partner to their image of what they had dreamed of, what they had hoped, what they wanted, what they expected. So lots of times when couples come in to see me, he's trying to convert her so that she's more tidy and more orderly, and she's trying to convert him so that he's more playful and available and emotional and relationship-oriented. And so it becomes as if this is a secular, as if this is a kind of religious concept where each one is trying to be a better therapist or a better counselor, religious counselor to the other, helping that person to be different from who he is. Better to start from a position of radical acceptance that there are differences, there are personality differences, and that if we can begin to go into this, into a marriage in the position of being an anthropologist, being curious, what is this other person's culture? How does this person perceive the world? How does this person think? How does this person feel? How does this person relate? And try to continuously create maps of understanding. And rather than projecting our judgments and our opinions, probably we can do a better job. Marriage is one of the most challenging and growthful experiences that anybody can have. And it takes work, and it takes time, and it takes take some understanding. Fortunately, there's more technology available to us. There's more good literature that's available to us about what successful people do.
Very accurate. Dr. Zeig, when you talk about radical acceptance, if we can define it more in how that it actually works within a couple, because I could hear couples say in my office, and as our viewers are watching, which is like, well, I can accept him, but I don't have to like it. I can accept some of the things that she does, but how am I going to live with it every day? So there's distinct difference between the acceptance of someone and then yet being able, you know, the workability of the marriage as I go on with something that I might not like, but I will accept that that's who you are and that's your culture. So can you talk a little bit about how the radical acceptance can come into the everyday life and implement itself in a way that, you know, the marriage becomes workable?
Yeah, I mean, if I went back to the original point of he's trying to convert her, she's trying to convert him, he's doing therapy on her, she's doing therapy on him. This is a typical scene that I see when couples come to me for therapy. Well, when they're coming to me for therapy, it's like they're coming to me for supervision. It's not really therapy. They're both trying to be better therapists to the other person, trying to change the other person. Now, if you get into a position of acceptance, well, yes, you don't necessarily like everything that everyone is doing, and different people have different habit patterns about clutter. If I wrote a book on clutter, I would probably be a New York Times best-selling author because it's such a common problem about couples. One person has a lot of clutter, the other person likes to keep things tidy. Now, as many times as somebody can be saying over and over again, you need to, well, it's not getting people there. It's not really changing, and then it just becomes an area of contention. So better to enter into the situation trying to understand, well, what does it mean to you to be tidy, and why is that important to you, and what is your goal in doing that, and what's your history about that? What was your family like about that? And so the radical acceptance then becomes based in trying to understand what is this other person's existential perspective. And once you can understand the person's existential perspective, once you can understand why is this meaningful to my partner, then it's easier to assume a position of acceptance. Okay, I get it. This is the way this person operates in the world, and this is what's important to them, this is what's meaningful to them, and I want my partner to be happy, so then I can try to accommodate because I understand the intrinsic meaning.
And as you talk, what I get is more also that sometimes clients or people go through this level of a power conversation where if one says, do something for me, the other one might have a resistance, as if someone, like a parent, is telling them what to do or needing to control them. And they'll get into this power conflict where, as the method that you're talking about of understanding the background, the meaning, the culture, and then accepting that that person has that and where it's coming from and how it's creating comfort and trust and safety and security for them in the marriage. And I'm just naming some of it as it may be. But what it is for the person, that then the concept of this power struggle goes away. And then from there, if I want to be in a relationship that we want to be happy and I want to give the kindness, as you talked about, the love that I want to give my mate for them to be happy, then from that place, it's much easier to give as a gift rather than try to resist as a power and control issue.
Yes. Let's go back to some basic things about communication. Most communication is SAD-JAN, S-A-D-J-A-N. So most communication is sullen silence, attack, deceit, judgment, advice, and negativity. Sad Jan. Sullen silence, attack, deceit, judgment, advice, and negativity. And these are blocking understanding. But this is how we are designed. Most communication tends to be in one of those 6 categories. And if we think about VAC, value-added communication, what could be value-added communication? Well, value-added communication is yeah, and. Now, when you find somebody who is really graced with either the natural ability or the acquired understanding, yeah, and, so whatever your partner says, it's a beautiful day. Oh, yeah, and we can do things today and be together, rather than sad Jan or yes, but. So when you're adding to the communication just a little bit of value, you know, I'm sad today. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that you're sad. It must be terrible. So you're just adding something, adding a little value. Yeah, and. Now, if couples did yeah, and communication rather than yes, but communication or any of the variants, probably we would have many more successful marriages. The basic principle, the underlying principle, the simplicity of it is, it's just confusing that something could be so simple and yet it's not accepted in everyday life. So if you do something, if you enhance the positive and you reduce the negative, you're going to be happy. So whatever's happening that's good, you find the good and you make it a little bit brighter. If something's happened bad, you circumscribe whatever it is that's happening bad. So if a patient said to me, I'm happy, I might say, oh yeah, you're really happy, enhancing the positive. If the patient said, I'm sad, I might say, well, you're a little bit sad at this moment. So circumscribing, limiting the negative, enhancing the positive. Unfortunately, we're not designed that way. The way that we're designed is that the human brain is a mismatch detector. The human brain is designed to notice what doesn't fit in any given situation. So, for example, if there's movement, you have to see movement in a stationary field. And if there's tall people, you have to notice the short person. And if there's a moving field, you have to notice what's stationary. The brain is designed to notice what's wrong, mismatches in any given situation. So we have to overcome some of our socio-biological evolution and get into a mentality of enhance the positive. If you enhance the positive and reduce the negative, you're not going to wind up in a therapist's office. You're going to wind up basically being a happy person. Whatever happens, you're doing a little bit of alchemy. Alchemy is the pseudoscience of turning lead into gold. When people can think, well, you know, I can create lemonade out of these lemons. I can do something. There's something that I can do that is value added. And when people get that mentality, kindness follows and good relationships follow, and people will basically stay out of psychotherapist's office, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. You know, psychotherapy is a problem, not a solution. The problem is that people are in therapy. The solution is get people out of therapy as quickly as possible, living life independent of therapy. And that one simple principle, that one concept is so hard to get across because we're working against some part of our evolutionary sociobiology.
When reading your books, I've come across many of these topics, which is the emotional impact of how do you bring that in your communication. I know that I've been in many of your seminars because you do hypnosis and you teach hypnosis. And I've watched you, I've heard you, and even now I think that the viewers, as they're hearing you, they can hear the way you bring your voice up and down and you move your words through the way so that it has an impact on people in your communication. So if you would tell us, what can someone in their marriage and their relationship do so that they can bring that sort of a positiveness into their communication so that it has that type of an emotional impact on their mate? Because I think you're probably one of the gurus in this field that has studied so well on how to put emotional impact in your words and tonality and impression.
Sure. Well, let's go back to fundamentals. And what is fundamental in science and what is fundamental in art is very different. So what is fundamental in science is facts. And so if you're teaching physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, you give people facts. What is fundamental to art is concepts. You don't go to art because you want facts. What is fundamental in religion is concepts. It's not facts that are really necessary. Faith is a concept. Faith is not a scientific fact that you can analyze in the laboratory. So if we want to get across facts, we're in the land of science, and then we use didactic information. We give people information. We give people advice. That is a fact. If you want to learn how to drive a car, you need facts. You need to know how to operate the car, and you need to practice that, and that is a mechanical skill. If you want to be happy in life, that's a concept. And we often make the epistemological error, the philosophical error of trying to communicate concepts through facts. What we need to do is to separate out, now I'm communicating facts, this is information, this is didactic, this is teaching, now I'm communicating concepts, and now I'm in the world of art. So what I have done is a project that's modeling. And modeling is a way of trying to understand excellence. And so it's like I look around the world, I find something that's excellent, I move it closer so I can study it, I chunk it down, I divide it down into components, I try on one component, I try on another component, I try on another component, trying to develop my personal excellence. So for most of my professional life, I studied Milton Erickson because he was the world's greatest therapeutic communicator, bar none. I am not subject to hyperbole. This man really understood how to use all of the output channels of communication and focus them to have effect on patients. What I've been doing the last 4 years is that I've been studying art. And I've been looking at how artists think about creating concepts in the heart of the participants of the art. How does a poet think? How does an architect think? How does a choreographer think? How does a film director think? How does a composer think? And I started a project which you could see on my website, emotional-impact.com, emotional-impact.com, where I've been interviewing artists trying to understand how they think about communicating concepts. For example, you want your child to be responsible. Now, if you say to your adolescent child, from a scientific perspective, I want you to be responsible, it's important for you to get a good education, it's important for you to go to a good college, it's important for you to study hard, because this is going to make your future life better. Well, how many adolescents have ignored that message? Because really what you're trying to do is you're trying to get across to that adolescent the concept of being responsible. concepts are understood experientially. They're not in your left hemisphere. They're not experienced in a straightforward didactic way. If you want somebody to get the concept of being responsible, perhaps you put them in a situation where they're taking care of a pet, or they're they're gardening, and they're doing something that they enjoy, and they are grasping the concept of being responsible. Once they can grasp it in one area of life, they can begin to transfer it to another. But no amount of lecturing is going to help somebody to get faith or motivation or connection or openness or curiosity. When we're in that world, we need to understand art. Now, because all of us have been to the movies and we've watched television and we've read novels, we understand the world of art better than we think. And the book that I'm writing now, which is a professional book, is for therapists to be able to understand conceptual communication rather than didactic communication. If we think about it, it's a simple four-step process. The associations that we have, our mental process, is filled with associations, which is thoughts that are come with images and memories and attitudes and beliefs. And our associations build to create concepts. Our concepts create states. Like being industrious is a concept, but being industrious could not only be a concept, it could be a state that is familiar to one person. Our states create identities. I am an industrious person. But when I'm doing therapy, I'm not working necessarily on the level of identity. I'm working more on the level of associations, helping people to create a concept in their mind using artistic methods, using methods that Beethoven would use or Shakespeare would use or Khalil Gibran would use. And I build on, though I try to use methods that artists would use because they're experts at conceptual communication. And the people who are just coming to me for didactic information, well, they could go to the self-help section of the bookstore and they could get all of the information that they need.
Wonderful. So as I hear you, is when you're utilizing in the conversation with your mate or with your family members, when you are conversing about facts, it's a different way of conversing. But if you're really talking about an experience that you want your mate to know about and to know about you, or that you're trying for them to try it on, or some of your children, is as if you are utilizing some of the stories, some of the experiential aspects that they can experience themselves with it, and whether it's through the music or the words of the songs, or whether it's watching a movie with them, or whether it's putting them and assigning some tasks that they can experientially experience, or using humor, or different versions of communications in order to create an experience for them which is heartfelt and create some emotional impact for them rather than just the fact. And in that way of communicating, not only that they'll get it, but they'll feel closer to the concept and closer to us as a couple and a family member.
Exactly. They have to own the concept. They have to feel the concept. They have to realize the personal meaning the concept has for them. And in order to get across concepts, it's better for us to think in terms of art. Art is not elective. Art is a human necessity. Art exercises our emotions. We can't live without art. And we can't live without science. We need both science and we need art. But we have to know this is a moment to be scientific. This is a moment to be artistic. This is the grammar of science. This is the grammar of art. And we know it. See, we know the grammar of art. We've all experienced so much art. And so it's just a matter of applying what we know at the proper circumstance.
It's amazing. Now, for the audience who really would love to go to therapy with Dr. Zeig, he lives in Phoenix, Arizona, so you would have to go there. You can also contact him through the website, the Erickson-Foundation.org, or please go to this new project, which is emotional-impact.org, right? .org?
Emotionalimpact.com.
Okay.
Or you can go to jefferyzeig.com, and that would be a way of finding some of the other websites. jeffzeig.com or jefferyzeig.com would be fine for people to find a reference. Normally that's a workshop. That's a site for my workshop organizers. A lot of my work is traveling around the world, inspiring and teaching therapists some of the state-of-the-art methods of brief, strategic psychotherapy, experiential psychotherapy, how to make psychotherapy into an experiential, enlivening moment, not just into a didactic classroom where people are better educated. People come to therapy for an experience. They don't come to therapy for information.
I have learned so much from you throughout these years. I really feel honored to know you and have had the chance to come and see your work twice a year. I'm so glad that you accepted my invitation to come to this show, and I thank you for also allowing me to actually present on in the brief conference that's coming up in December and for therapists.
Fantastic.
Yes. So
glad that you're on the podium, glad that you'll be presenting at the conference. And thank you so much for this opportunity, and bless you for the work that you're doing and making people more conscious, more aware of issues that are psychological and how they can benefit from their understanding.
Great, and I hope that you will take my invitation and come back again as you have completed some of the project that you have with artists and the new concepts that you constantly are acquiring and putting into the different realm where people can really utilize it in their life. For the viewers, thank you so much for being with us this week, and until our next show next Monday, create wonderful days every day. Goodbye.